Welcome to the Hayden Planetarium and this visualization of the Apollo 16 landing site. So Charlie, I want to give you this microphone of honor. And actually, I'd like if you could sit here. This would be wonderful. And, sorry about that. And where's Dottie? Is she here? Okay, just come.
Okay. So and they got to go up another floor, so.
Okay.
Great. A minute.
Okay. Well, I just, before we start to move, I thought maybe I'd just point out here, Stone Mountain. Over here. Here's Gator. And Palmetto. North Ray.
Yep.
South Ray. Baby Ray.
Yeah.
And if I've got my bearings right, I guess that's Spook right over here. And Flag.
Wow.
So, oh, nice. Great. So in this way, we can have a little bit of a dialogue, but I thought I'd give you the laser. If you'd like to point with it, there's a button right here. And
right there.
So yeah, if you want to point things out. And then we can fly at will around the landing site. So without further ado, I thought I'll get back here on the controls.
Well, why don't we let the rest of the family come, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can still bring the red lights up, I think, just because we have some family members who are coming in. Yeah. So. Oh, wait, are they? Okay, I thought they were under escort.
They have an escort.
Okay.
And they had to go up to the next floor up for the restrooms, I think.
Well, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, this is a big view of the looking to the west out here. And this is where, which was really an incredible view. You couldn't see any of the stars when we were there because the sun was back over here in the east. And we had shadows along the craters here, and that helped us to land because if the sun was directly overhead, everything was washed out, and you couldn't see the craters. So all of Apollo landed with a low sun angle, so you could see the edges of the craters. You could get what's the word I'm searching for? The slope of the land by, if it's a dark gray, it was tilted away from you. If it was light gray, it was tilted towards you. And so we used those cues to try to find a landing spot that was fairly level, which John did. My job was to talk him down, give him altitude, rate of descent, landing point designation from the computer, monitor the systems, fuel states, and all of that kind of stuff. Keep him on trajectory, and as we came down, and he picked a fantastic landing spot. We were almost dead level, but if you look at that, Carter, I don't know whether we'll have that LRO. Y'all come on in.
We are looking at, this is the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter data. And so do we still have some folks coming down?
I think that's everyone.
All right.
Where's Dottie?
Well, where's Dorothy?
Yeah. Dottie.
My wife.
Charlie's wife.
We lose her.
Oh my gosh.
She got up in here. I can't find her. She didn't stay on the elevator. She didn't stay on the elevator with us. She's not in here. I'll find her.
Oh my gosh.
I think she went to the.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that, Charlie.
That's all right. It's not your fault.
We got Dottie's crater too, which gonna fly over to, and also Cat crater. Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. Look, we just had a question if I was gonna replay the approach, and so the answer is yes. And there's a call coming in from, hey, Bob, Jamie was calling, so I'm not, he might be out there. Yeah, sorry. So I guess while we wait, I'll just move ahead just a little bit to fly over the landscape. We can do this any number of ways, but if I come in like this, is roughly approximating your approach, Charlie. And I'm sorry we've still got the red lights on, but until we find Dottie, I'm a little nervous. Not yet? Oh, geez. Okay.
It was a half Earth when we were there, and it was almost directly overhead. And so, as you're standing there and you're on the moon, and you wanted to see the Earth, you looked up, and you're looking at the top of your helmet. You're looking at the top of your helmet because of the Apollo helmet doesn't move when you move your head. It's just like being in a big fishbowl.
Okay. Well, let's bring the lights up a little bit. Thank you. Yay! We found Dottie. Oh. Okay. Great.
Huh?
Oh, good. Okay.
I found her, Charlie. I found her. She was wandering.
No, that's it. That's everybody. This is wonderful. Okay. Well, thank God we found Dottie. That's good. All right. Charlie, what I thought I'd do is maybe back up to sort of where we were starting from on your approach. There's a black dot that we'll see based on the reflectivity of the moon from this particular image. What I'll do is we have lighting turned on to roughly approximate the landing illumination. And Charlie, I guess you were talking about that, just having the sort of right sort of lighting so that emphasizes the detail. If I toggle that so that we're just looking at the image without the shading, that's what the image looks like, which is basically the sun above.
Yeah. And
so at this point, it's very difficult to gauge, I guess, the rolling of the land. And
right.
There we go. So I'll try to proceed now along the rough approximation for touchdown in the Descartes Highlands.
Yeah, at this point, I'm calling out to John the altitude, rate of descent, fuel states. We had landing point designation on the window. And if he looked through the ladder at those numbers that I'm calling out from the computer, that's where we're going to land unless he does makes a correction. And which he did. We were north and too far, and so he got shorter and came back into this landing spot. Southway crater was over here, which was really brilliant, and Northway crater is up here somewhere.
And dead ahead, there's a dark spot.
Right here?
Right there.
Yeah.
That's the limb, and before that, in front of us, just a little bit, that's
right here.
It's the rover.
That's the rover, yeah.
Yeah.
And this bright spot is our experiments package over here.
Great. So I'll slow us up a little bit and maybe rise this up so that we can see it a little better.
You can see when the lunar module landed, it blew out a lot of the dust, and the dust underneath is darker, and you can see some of the footprints. We left two seismic experiments out here. This is the central station, which records data from all the experiments.
So if I do that, I'll just give you better lighting, perhaps, just to see the what's left over there. Sorry, Charlie.
Yeah. Well, you can see these black spots. They're all part of the experiments package. I'm not sure exactly which one. I had a heat flow experiments I was doing out in this position. This is probably the one of the seismic experiments. There was a magnetometer and a mass spectrometer and two seismic experiments that we put out. You can see some of the tracks here that we had left. This is a lunar module descent stage. And this big crater here, we did not see it.
Wow.
When we started down. And if we'd have landed 3 meters back here, it wouldn't have turned over, but it would have been, we'd had a real tilt on the lunar module, and I probably couldn't have reached up to get the experiments package, which was on the back side of the descent stage.
Wow.
So we were very fortunate. And actually, this spot was just dead level.
Also, the geophones, you can see in a light line, I guess, running sort of up to sort of 11 o'clock position from, I guess, the center of the LCA. Yeah.
Right here, yeah.
Yeah.
This was the geophone. This was the one of the active seismic experiments that we had. This is really amazing photography, bringing back a lot of memories.
Wow. Well, I'd like to take you, well, I might put the lighting back on just to give us a little better read of the undulation of the landscape before sort of flying over it. And so, there. And we sort of have a checkerboarding that occurs because we're kind of right down to the edge of the resolution that we're getting for the height map. But once again, if I just let us float over here, not too fast, upset anybody's stomach. So we see the lunar module, and I guess if we go directly, proceed in the direction that the lunar module was landing in, so if we're sort of going this direction westward, that we're approaching Spook Crater.
No, this crater here was big. We didn't go there. We were over it this way.
Yeah, and up here is
Carter, what is the scale we're looking at here?
well, well, it really sort of depends on having a scale object, and so having the lunar module there, I believe. So this is Buster Crater in front of us.
Here, yeah.
That's right. And so I think Spook Crater was on the order of about, about 600 feet or so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then farther out is Halfway Crater. And of course, you guys went out to Plum.
Yeah.
Which is on the edge of Flag, I guess.
Yeah. It was about if I remember, about a 1.5 kilometers out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Back to the rover. That's right. And so here we can...
we just, to avoid all these big ones, we just, John just drove around. And we could see these smaller ones and the bigger ones, and we just, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So here's Plum Crater coming up.
Right here.
So that's Flag, and then Plum is right on the edge. So I'll bring us down a little closer to it. I was wondering, because you guys were doing sampling, I guess, around Plum Crater But you were really on the edge of this larger flag crater.
This flag was a bigger one, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So after setting up the ALSEP station and all that on EVA-1, I guess after your drive out here was the furthest extent of your first EVA.
To the west, that's correct.
Okay.
If I remember, 1.5 kilometers.
Mm-hmm.
And we collected the biggest rock that we collected in the whole mission was out at on the flank of Plum Crater.
Was that Big Mully?
Big Muley.
Big Muley.
Muley, yeah. Probably weighed, it's like a small watermelon, so probably weighed 20 pounds. This is on our second EVA. This is a good view of Stone Mountain over here. And we actually, from a landing, we drove up to this point right in here to a place called Cinco Crater. And that was a spectacular view from the flank of this mountain up here, looking back across this valley. And you could see all the way over here to this side, which was called Smoky Mountains. We call them Smoky Mountains. A lot of these craters that we're seeing here, when you're down on the surface, you don't see all of these big ones. We had studied a lot of them, and we knew that which ones we wanted to go to in the direction, and so we tried to navigate as best we could. But we had, I mean, even these craters, the small ones like this, would the rover would get in there, and we had to navigate around them.
So we can see the lunar module again, and the lunar rover location, the black dot once again. And to just illustrate that perhaps a little more clearly, let me put on my reading glasses. Okay, there. So now we can clearly see where the rover is.
Right here, yeah.
Perhaps just to remind us, but I'll put back on the lighting like so, and then proceed south towards Stone Mountain, which on EVA-2.
And we went up this way, yeah.
Yeah. And Cinco was really 5 craters, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
A series of 5 small craters that you could see in our and the photographs barely. The photographs we used to study were 45 feet in resolution, if I remember. These are the tracks, I think.
Oh, let's see. Let's slow down. Come over. I see Crown Crater, which is up there on above.
Right
Yep.
here.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And let's look at this just to make sure it's not an artifact. That's a really straight line. So.
Yeah, I don't think that's us. Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't drive that straight. I know.
Okay. So I'll just check that by toggling the image on and off.
Oh, it's yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's an edge in the perhaps the height map processing.
Right. Yeah.
But then let me come over to Cinco Craters, right below Crown, I guess. Those 5 craters, just up in here, right?
Yeah, right in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the highest altitude that any Apollo astronauts got to. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. Our valley where we landed on the Cayley Plains, if I recall, was about 8,000 feet above where Neil Armstrong landed. And this was a very important crater, this South Ray crater over here. It was very fresh, and when it hit, it blasted out stuff over we couldn't get there because it was like 8 or 9 miles away. And that was just too far for our walk back, because if we drove out there and the car broke down, we had to walk back, and that was too far for us.
I was wondering, but Baby Ray was kind of within range. Was that discussed?
Well, this might be North Ray, way over here. South Ray.
No, that's South Ray, the one
right here?
Yep, and then Baby Ray is, I'll turn us around so that we can, There it is. There's Baby Ray.
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't, for some reason, we decided not to go there. The geologist wanted us up on top of Stone Mountain instead.
And then I was intrigued that you pulled up next to a crater called Wreck, I guess, over here. And that, once again, if I toggle off the lighting, that we can see the bright rays of ejecta, and some images are higher contrast, but that you had Station 9, I guess, that was, you called vacant lot, because it was somewhat clean from the rays, I guess, so the geologist wanted you to sample there, just around here, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. And turning the lighting back on. Proceed back northward to the landing site. I think one of these craters is Rose Crater. Oh no, that's Flag, and that's Spook right there. And,
This one?
Yep.
Yeah.
And we see Buster. And once again, we see the Lunar Module. And setting up for, I guess, your third EVA, which is where some time was cut out, right? Because of the...
Yeah, we only had about 5.5 hours on the third EVA. So we made it all the way up to what we call North Ray Crater. And we spent a lot of time up there because we had House Rock, was a big rock up there on the corner.
Well, let's go visit
on the rim of it.
Okay, and we're coming up to Palmetto, where I guess is about the same size as North Ray, but older.
Yeah, 500 meters, I think it was, yeah.
And North Ray was about 1 kilometer across, I believe. Is that right? Yeah.
Not quite.
Okay. And we see Gator over on, well, to the right, my right, I guess, where I'm sitting.
Here, yeah.
And it always impressed me how beautiful the footage, the 16 millimeter footage that you guys brought back from the rover as you drove. I guess maybe downhill from this, but just how rolling this was. We're coming up on End Crater directly ahead. And then Dottie's Crater just off to the left.
That's right here.
Yeah. Did you actually visit Dot Crater, or?
No, it was on our checklist, but we had to cut it out. Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of a shame.
We didn't get there either. There was Cat Crater for the Charles and Tom
Let's go over
kids.
there. Yeah.
But we didn't stop there either.
Cat Crater over at the edge of Ravine. So let's come over to Cat. And there's Cat Crater right on the ridge of Ravine. There it is, guys.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit off the drive that you did, but let's proceed up to North Ray, because that is quite a dramatic crater.
Yeah, it was spectacular. Very fresh.
And you got more and more boulders, I guess, as you got closer to it.
Right, yeah.
Okay. And I see House Rock already.
Right here.
Yep.
Yep. And we were over here on this rim over here somewhere.
And you guys walked over, I guess. I remember seeing it on TV.
Yeah. And this is higher than this rim right here.
Okay, let's come in.
Yeah, we got it right up in here, but we weren't. I mean, I got as close as I was going to get, and I couldn't see the bottom.
Well, let's come in just really close. I'm going to really push it here, but push the resolution. And then we'll play with the lighting a little bit.
I can remember these rock layers, and this might be part of the film, but it's also we had these rock layers you could see in the far wall over here, and I had a 500 millimeter camera that I was taking pictures of these distant far side.
I'll adjust this now so we can see it better. Sorry. Don't mean to interrupt you.
That's all right.
Okay.
Yeah, here's House Rock over here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we'll adjust that so it's a little dimmer, but allow us to see this better.
Now, this is not the bottom of the crater right here. This is just debris fall. And
so here, we'll
well,
fly
why don't you
a
get
little
us
bit.
where we can see the bottom? Because yeah, there we go.
Wow. It was impressive. This is the first time we were seeing this was last night in here, and we got up to this crater and said, "Wow, you really can't see the bottom of it."
No. And what I was these are the things that I was taking pictures of. These little outcrops of rock in here.
That down a little bit. Just this, yeah.
LRO is amazing, these pictures, yeah. I'm seeing a lot more than we saw in real time.
We'll turn this around so that we can kind of see, I guess in the future we need drones on the moon.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it'd have to be rocket drones. Propellers won't work.
Yeah. I guess there's some talk about using drones on Mars, however thin the atmosphere happens to be, but still a possibility. So House Rock is coming in from the right.
Right
there
here,
you go.
yeah. Right here is House Rock, yeah.
And off to one side is Outhouse Rock, is that right?
I don't remember. Yeah, it was actually, it looked like a solid rock, but it was split in two on this edge right here.
Okay.
And we walked around on this side, in the sunlit side, and had a hammer, and we could whack on the hammer. This part, you can see, was almost split off.
Wow.
And I think we were right in here when we sampled.
Geez. I understand it's about the height of a 4-story building or greater, maybe about the height of a tenement building on the Lower East Side.
I would say, I estimated 90 feet by 45 feet. Yeah. But this looks bigger than that, probably. It's hard to tell it's hard to tell size on the moon because you're looking at objects you've never seen before. So a big rock far off looks very similar to a smaller rock. And so you don't have any telephone poles or trees or people or houses to give you a sense of scale. So you're just guessing, really.
So,
yeah, and we were way over on this side here when we parked, and we had to jog over here, and John didn't want to do it at first. He said, it's too far away. I said, come on, John, it's just right over here. And we started jogging, and we jogged and jogged and jogged. And
well, you're a couple years younger than John.
Well, just a little. He was in good shape, though, buddy, I'll tell you.
Didn't somebody spill orange juice around here?
Well, we had a little problem in orbit with some orange juice, yeah. It was leaking. Now, we had a bag of orange juice velcroed to the inside of our suit so that when we were on the moon, we'd have something to drink. And we'd put that on because our original plan was to go, after the landing, was to power down and go out. Well, we had a 6 hours delay, and so when I'm in orbit, I had a leaky valve, and this orange juice was every time I'd take a breath, a little drop of orange juice would come off inside my helmet and be floating around in zero gravity, which was a real pain. It got on my nose, and it got on the visor, and it got sticky, evaporated, and it was a big mess. Finally, I had to take my helmet off and clean it up. So we decided we weren't going to use orange juice anymore. So when we actually got out, we had the bags filled with water instead of orange juice.
Wow.
Yeah. The white areas, I think, are all the fresh impact craters. Because when a meteorite hits and it's recent, it's all bright. As it ages, it turns brown, darker.
Are house rock and those large boulders just part of the ejecta?
Yeah, they came out of house rock. They think that the house rock came out of the bottom of here with a big rock, with a big impact. The bigger rocks can't go very far, so they just blast it out and land. The finer ejecta, the smaller ones they can go for miles and miles before they land. And you can see some of the rays going out this way.
Well, we really have to compensate for sort of to show how bright North Ray Crater is. You can now see how dark the rest of the landscape is. I can bring that back around as we perhaps drive back to the rover and come down to.
You can see, the darkness. South Ray, this is South Ray, I believe, right over here, and it was a fresh crater too.
And what I'll do is I'll bias that again so that we can hopefully see it a little better. There we go.
Yeah.
And
that's more what it looked like to us. Lower sun angle.
Okay. And I'll go back to navigate.
Stone Mountain over here.
Mm-hmm. And then also Shadow Rock. Let's see, I'll gain a little altitude just to find some of the craters that, there it is.
Did you find Shadow Rock, really?
Yep.
Wow.
Okay. And it's right there ahead of us, and I'll slow us down. And it's that dark one with the shadow.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that was about 3 meters tall, about 10 feet tall, that rock. And on this side right here, there was a tunnel, it looked like. Wow. And we were searching for a spot on the moon that had never seen sunlight. And that was the closest we could find. And I had to kneel down and rest on the rock and stick my shovel way up in there to get a sample of that.
Wow.
And I remember telling John, I said, up here you get a shouted sample. In Texas, you get a rattlesnake.
How true.
Oh. And North Ray Crater, if I remember, was the farthest we went, 4.5 miles, I believe it was.
Here, I'll turn around just to see the view from Shadow Rock back up to North Ray. You really get kind of a sense of how rugged the landscape is.
Yeah, it wasn't smooth. And coming off, driving down off of North Ray Crater, John really got going fast, and our speedometer went up to, it was in kilometers, and it went up to 17, and we were off scale high. So we were really moving, and so we claimed the moon speed record. But Apollo 17 challenged that because they were off scale high. So we said, okay, let's just share it. So we've got a double vehicle moon speed record. They said 17, we had 17.
Well, I'll drive us back down toward the rover. And as we do, Charlie, I wanted to ask you, you were mentioning tonight about the EVA with Ken, with TK. Mattingly getting the film cassettes back.
Yeah.
Now, did you catch his wedding ring?
I did, yeah. He had lost his wedding ring on the second day of the mission. And of course, it's a capsule that's enclosed and no way to escape. So we know it's in the spacecraft somewhere, but we can't find it. And so on the way, that's now 7 days later, we're out doing this spacewalk on the way home. And if you were at the movie, you remember I told you we looked over and we saw the crater, the moon 50,000 miles away. And after that view, I got back inside and was in the lower equipment bay about 6 feet from the hatch. And Ken was out about 10 feet away working on a biological experiment that was attached to the hatch. And as I'm watching him, I see this glint in my left eye, and I look over, and there's this wedding ring floating out the hatch. So I reached for it, and I missed it, and it just continued on out. And I said, well, lost in space. I didn't say it, but that's what I thought. And it took several, I don't know, 20, 30 seconds, maybe even more, but it just slowly went out towards him, and it ended up hitting him on the back of the head. And instead of taking a bounce off into space, as you would expect with a round ring and a round helmet, it hit him and took a 180-degree bounce and started back very slowly towards the hatch. And it just floated right back through the center of the hatch and right in front of my face, and I grabbed it. Yeah. Here we go. There's our lunar module.
I have to give credit to Andy Chaikin for bringing that story out in his book, Man on the Moon, and I love that story. It's such a wonderful story.
Well, I mean, every time I look at this, I say we were really close to disaster if we'd have landed back in here.
I'll bring us back down. And
I dropped a picture out in here. So I don't remember exactly, but it was out. It was out beyond where all of the tracks were. This, if I remember, this is about 100 meters. 100 yards, a little bit long farther, where we walked out and had the experiments. And I think it was over in here, Tom, but I'm not sure exactly. This is the flag right here.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll bring us down as close as we can. And I have this one. I'm going to lean over Alex here. Are we all the way up with our level of detail? Okay, let me just check that. There's one little thing I can maybe boost the detail just a little bit. Okay. Well, it's kind of hard to see. It's pretty much what we're seeing already. So that the kind of the limits of this, but considering the size of the equipment and the tracks that we're seeing, it's pretty incredible.
It really is impressive, yeah. LRO has done a fantastic job of mapping all of the Apollo landing sites.
Yeah.
And the rover is back over, the black spot over here. Yeah.
And Charlie, the rover was parked in a prime location so that a guy by the handle of Captain Video, I guess back in Mission Control, was.
His name was Ed Findell, and he was. We had a TV camera on the front of the rover, and it was all we did was turn it on, and he controlled it. He could do elevation. He could do back and forth, zoom in and out. And he had to get very good at it, because when he sent a signal, the camera took a second and a half for the signal to get there, and then the camera would start to move. And so we left the car here with the TV camera pointed towards the lunar module. And when we left, he started the camera moving up so that he would see us going up. And he almost got it right. This was his second chance, and we had about 400 feet, I guess, before we disappeared. But he got it right on Apollo 17, and to the max elevation of the camera, you could see the ascent stage on the way up. You got a good view of our ascent liftoff and the debris that was flew about. You could see the flag waving from the exhaust in that video. So he really did a good job. We just came straight up for 800 feet, and then we pitched over and started our westward trajectory to get back in orbit. And the orbit for Apollo, the lunar module, when we got back in orbit, was about 50,000 feet. And the command module was going over at 60 miles. So we got in orbit and we tilted up to point our radar at him, and we locked on right away. We were about 150 miles behind him. And in the next hour, though, we had changed that. We were on the backside of the moon. We made rendezvous, and finally, as we came around the backside and we had Earthrise again, we had just about rendezvoused. Well, we had rendezvous, but we hadn't docked up.
I thought what I'd do is just rise up far enough so that we can appreciate the imagery a little bit that was being taken by Ken Mattingly.
Now, what's this big crater, Carter? You remember?
That one over
there. They got it labeled?
I am not certain of that one.
I don't think we saw that. I think we went this way.
Yeah, because actually you can now see a boundary that looks like a strip. And that's the imagery from the service module.
Yeah.
And so right there are the LRO footprints.
Right.
And but as I rise up here, I'll tip the moon around so that we have north up. And we can see now the metric camera strip, which is the mapping camera that was in the orbital command and service, well, it's in the service module.
Yeah.
And so that is basically the view from the orbit that had to support the landing and then, of course, the rendezvous to come home. And to just quickly reference that crater.
Our ascent went this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and Alex, if you can just...
This is what Ken did, the mapping camera. Yeah.
Yeah, and so what I thought I'd do is I'd quickly look up my crib sheet for what crater that is. And, okay.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Is this all LRO picture out here?
That is Bulfeta, and above that is Descartes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I'm sorry, your question was, Charlie? I missed.
Is this LRO stuff out here?
That is the wide-angle camera from the...
now, Neil Armstrong landed out in here somewhere.
That's right, near Ritter and Sabine, a little bit... yeah, that's okay. Alex is driving now. And here, I'll just come out and I can point out roughly where the Apollo 11 landing site is.
This is Mare Tranquillitatis, right?
Yes, yeah. And then here, I'll just help point out. This is Ritter and Sabine, and so Apollo 11 landed just about in here.
Okay. And
Apollo 17 up here.
Yeah, and how far was 11 from 16? How far is that distance? You remember?
Well, geez, that's about the width.
600 miles or so?
That should be, let's see, because the width of Serenitatis here That's got to be, I think it's about within maybe about 500. Yeah.
500 miles, yeah.
And you
There's
can see the
8,000
range
feet difference in elevation, if I recall.
from in the highlands, where you can see how, from the shadow detail, how big this is. Alex, could we come in here? And we should see the Apollo craters, named after the Apollo 11 astronauts. And we don't have labels on just yet, but yes, I believe these are the craters associated with Apollo 11 by name.
Yeah, see, you can see it's a lot smoother.
Yeah. So I wish I could be more specific about that. The Apollo 17 landing site, however, is over here.
Yeah.
And I believe they were able to date Tycho crater based on the cratering that occurred from the ray from Tycho. So it's right up in here, Taurus Littrow. So, there we are.
That is the front, huh?
Yep. So there's South Massif, North Massif, Lincoln Scarp, and right there is Camelot Crater, named for the Kennedy administration. Okay. Great.
Spectacular. Wow.
Wonderful. Alex, do you have the height map on? We'll check. So here's, I believe this is Camelot. And we would have higher resolution for this. Okay. But we were focused on Apollo 16 today.
Yeah, right.
For your visit.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no.
That's great.
Is there anything else you'd like to see?
No, that's fine.
Great. Okay.
That's great.
Good. Well,
A lot of great memories. Thanks a lot. This is super.
No, well,
That's what the moon looked like when we were 50,000 miles away, it seemed like. We're huge. Yeah.
And we brought some stars in so that it wouldn't be so black and lonely, but I guess the contrast in space is tremendous. So, Charlie,
Thanks a lot for doing this for us, Gordon.
Oh, thank you. It's really an honor. Thank you.
Really great.
Great. Wonderful. Okay. And I want to thank Alex Bach, our lead code developer for OpenSpace that we're working on with a NASA grant. And I also want to thank two students from Columbia University who I've been working with for a number of years, Kiara Wong and also Janie. Janie, can you guys stand up, please? So, Charlie, these young ladies have been processing some of the data so that we could see it tonight. So, anyway, I want to thank you, and I want to thank you all. And I think